When applying to medical school, the MCAT is an extremely important part of your application. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 5 things you need to do to get started when studying for this exam. Hey everyone, welcome back to AV Med. My name is Adrian and I'm a second year med student at UCSF in San Francisco, and I'm going to be talking about how you can start preparing for the MCAT. This video is for anyone who's getting ready to take the MCAT, or if you're a pre-med who's going to take the MCAT in the future, then this video will have a lot of good tips for you too. So I'm actually going to start with step 0, which is having the adequate prerequisite courses. This includes a year of biology, a year of chemistry, a year of organic chemistry, a year of physics, and biochemistry. You want to make sure that you've taken all of these courses, because if you haven't, then you're really going to be starting behind when it comes time to study for the MCAT, because the test is already difficult when you've already taken all of these classes. In addition, you're going to want to make sure that you're taking the MCAT within a reasonable amount of time for when you took these courses. Within 1 to 2 years is okay, but when you start to get to 3+ years after you've taken these courses, it's going to be more difficult for you to review the information. Finally, for any of you who are in these courses now and looking forward to the MCAT, I highly advise you to do the very best you can in these courses. Not only are you going to get the benefit of increasing your GPA by doing well in this course, but this knowledge will actually pay dividends when it comes time to study for the MCAT. The first step in preparing to study for the MCAT is allocating adequate time for you to study. If you're able to have time where you can focus 100% on the MCAT, then you can get this done in 10 to 12 weeks. However, if you plan to do this while in school or while working a job, then it will take something like 3 to 6 months. For students, I highly recommend taking it over the summer and fully focusing on the MCAT. Another popular choice is taking it during the fall semester. For this, most students will study throughout the fall and then use their 1 month of winter break to go hard on studying before taking their exam. Some students will also take it in the spring, although I feel this is a little bit more difficult unless you're willing to bleed into your summer. Something else to consider is that I recommend taking your exam within 1 year of applying to medical school. Your MCAT score is only good for 2 to 3 years depending on the school, so if you wait too long after taking your MCAT, then your score could expire. In addition, if your score is already 2 years old and you don't get in and have to reapply, the last thing you want to do is retake your exam. So taking your test within 1 year of applying to med school is generally a good rule of thumb. Another thing you should do when picking a time to study for the MCAT is make sure that you're in a good environment to study and focus. You really want to make sure that you're going to be in a good and healthy place when studying for this test, because the test alone is stressful enough. For me, that meant living at home with my parents where it was quiet rather than living at my university. This will be different for everyone. I recommend no more than 5 to 10 hours of other extracurricular activities during this time. Now that you know when you're going to be studying for the MCAT, the next thing to do is to sign up for the exam. Many people don't know this, but you're going to want to sign up as soon as your testing slot opens. Slots are limited, and I've heard of people having to fly to other states or drive far away for their exam, and you should try to avoid this if you can. The last thing you want to be doing before taking your test is flying to another state and checking into a hotel when you could be staying in your own bed. You should try to pick a testing site that's close to your house and look into what day of the week it is and how traffic will be. Even though your test is far in the future right now, all of those things will be really important when it comes time for test day. The next step is to decide whether you're going to self-study or take a course. Personally, I highly recommend looking into self-studying if feasible. Even if you do take a course, the truth is that you have to spend a lot of time studying on your own, so they can't hold your hand through everything. It's also important to make sure that you're not using a course as a crutch for yourself. And what I mean by this is that many people can become complacent because they feel that just because they're enrolled in a course, then that means that they're on track to do well on the MCAT. The burden is on you to be proactive and make sure that you're staying on track with your studying. The next step you need to take is picking a review book for content review. I think a lot of people overanalyze this, and personally, I don't think it matters which brand you use as long as you're using a reputable brand. Personally, I use the Berkeley Review, which I really liked. But I know a lot of people like Princeton or Kaplan, and I encourage you to shop around and look at how these books differ. If you're taking a course, then they may provide you with books, which will make the choice for you. Once you've picked a book, you want to make sure that it covers the content in all 4 sections of the MCAT. For example, I used the Berkeley Review books, and their content was really lacking in the psychology and sociology section. So I had to go out and get some supplementary materials to study for that section. A pro tip here is to try to get used books. If you have any friends who have taken the MCAT recently, they may have their books left over that they're willing to loan to you or sell to you for a steep discount. The final step in preparing to take the MCAT is creating a study plan. And even if you are in a review course, I highly recommend creating a study plan because you need to track your progress. And it's okay if you don't stick to it 100%, but it's really important that you can check in with your plan throughout the summer and make sure that you're on track. I could make a whole video about this, but I'm going to talk about a couple key components of any good study plan. One of the biggest mistakes that I see when people study for the MCAT is that they dedicate too much time to content review. If you're not familiar with this, content review is when you're going through the review books and just reviewing the actual content that will be on the MCAT, but not doing practice passages yet. It's really important that no more than 50% of your total time studying for the MCAT is focused on content review. Many people will study for the MCAT for 3 months and not start doing practice passages until the last 3 weeks. This is a huge mistake. You'll find that although content review is essential, it really doesn't prepare you very well for the MCAT passages, and you need to spend a lot of time doing passages. So by limiting your content review to 50% of your overall time, you'll be much more likely to score higher on the actual test. So what about the other 50% of the time? You're going to want to focus on doing as many practice passages as you can. I highly recommend using UWorld. This is a service that you have to pay for, but it's worth its weight in gold. This has a lot of practice passages with excellent explanations. And feel free to use other websites if you feel like they have good passages for the MCAT. The other resource for practice questions and passages that you have to know about is the AAMC's website. The AAMC has question packs and section banks on their website, which you can buy, and these are really helpful because they actually come from the people who make the tests. Finally, you should really utilize the AAMC's practice tests. Most people agree that these are by far the best predictor of your actual score in the MCAT. I recommend taking all of them if you can, but something I tell everyone is that you should always take one of those practice tests 1 month before your exam. This is going to allow you to see where you are in reference to your goal score. If you're really far away from it, then you may need to push back your exam date. However, if you're within shooting range of your score, then this is going to allow you to really focus and dig in for the last couple weeks to get a couple more points on your tests. And last but not least, when you're making your study plan, you want to give yourself at least 1 day completely off a week. This is really important to make sure that your mental health stays good and you have some time to actually live your life. Here's an example of my study plan. You can see that I studied for 12 weeks, and the red here is my content review. So I only did content review for half the time. I spent the next 6 weeks fully focusing on only practice questions. Another way you could do this is implementing practice questions earlier on and spending less time doing content review. As long as you're not doing content review more than 50% of the time, you should be good. And I know looking at this spreadsheet can be pretty overwhelming, but the way I did this is I just filled in one of these squares per day. The point of this was for me to track my progress and see how I was doing. I didn't have everything perfectly planned out at the start, but I started with a rough plan and adjusted as I went. You can see here that I wrote out the chapters from the books that I was using, and I planned out how long it was going to take me to get through the book. This allowed me to stay focused and organized the whole time. I truly believe that anyone with dedication and planning can do well on the MCAT, and if you do these 5 things, you're really going to be setting yourself up for success. Okay everyone, so those were the 5 steps you need to take to start preparing for the MCAT. Leave a comment down below if you want to see other types of MCAT videos, or if you want a whole video dedicated to creating a study plan. Good luck studying everyone, and I'll see you next time.